Hi, Sharon. Shabbat Shalom. I don't need to watch myself on Zoom. Watch myself here.
I'll watch you.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We'll wait a couple more minutes for people to trickle in. Good to be with all of you tonight.
Hi, everyone. Whoops.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Hi, everyone. It's Rich. I'm here trying to help out with some tech support.
Kind of weird watching people this way.
I can get.
Shabbat Shalom. Good to be here with all of you, both on YouTube and also at Or Hadash with Rich. We are going to get started with Shalom Aleichem, which can be found on page 13. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Zeitem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now turn to the lighting of our Shabbat candles. If you have candles and candlesticks at home, and you haven't lit them yet, I invite you to take them out as we light together as a community. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lecha hadlikner shel Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom to those who have joined us. I am Rabbi Sarah. I am serving as the family leave rabbi here at Or Hadash while Rabbi Alana is on family leave, and it's a pleasure to be with you all this evening. We will continue with our service with this Kabbalat Shabbat service on page 21 with Psalm 95. V'chuneranena l'Adonai nariya l'tzuhur yishenu nekadma pana betodah bismirahot nariya lo. At the asterisk on page 23, Arba'im shana kut bedor va'omar ta'am to'eh levavchem v'chem lo yadu drachai asher nishbati be'afihi im yavo'un el vanuchati. Page 25. We're singing out. We begin this Kabbalat Shabbat in appreciation of having this holy special day, the sacred time of Shabbat, and of appreciation for the divine, the mystery of the world, and for the ability for us to come together as a community. So I invite you to really sing out at Psalm 96. Shiru l'Adonai, shir chadash, shiru l'Adonai, kol ha'aretz. Shiru l'Adonai, baruch shemo, basru meyom leyom, Yeshuato, sapru bagoyim kevodo, bechol hamihim niflohotav, ki gadol Adonai, hula me'or, no rahu, al kol Elohim, yadai ki kol Elohai hamim elim, va'adonai shamayim asad, hod v'chada lefanaz al shetiferet b'mihigdasho, havul Adonai mishpachot amim, havul Adonai kavod va'oz, havul Adonai kavod shemoho, seu mincha ubo lechol tratav, Hishtachavu l'Adonai b'chadrat kodesh, hilu b'panav kol haaretz, imru bagoyim Adonai mahala, avtichon tevel batimod yadin amim b'misharim, yismechu chashamayim v'tagal haaretz, Yiram Chayam Umelo Aidai Yalo Sadai V'chol Asher Bo Az Yiranenu Kol Atzeyar Lifnei Adonai Kiva Lishbot Haaretz Yishbot Tevel B'tzedek Be'amim Be'emunato Oh, feels good to sing out in praise and in community. I got a lot of New York Times updates and news alerts today, and there was one I think a news story many of us have been watching and seeing what was going to happen, and that was the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse, a man who during the uprising in 2020 for racial justice and for equality and equity in this country, took a gun and shot 3 protesters who were there, and 2 of them were killed. And over the past weeks, we've been watching this trial, and I think a lot of us with a lot of tension and anxiety and anticipation. And today we heard this verdict of not guilty. And I think for many of us, it was very painful to hear that. And I am, there are times where we look around at the world around us and we think, where is the justice here? Where is the righteousness here? And it can be really hard to see that. And it can be really hard when we might know in our bodies, in our guts, in our community, what is right and what is wrong. And we don't see that reflected in the world around us. And in kind of thinking about that and holding my pain and grief around that, I look to the Psalms, and I specifically look to Psalm 97, which you can, if you turn to page 30, you will see the last bit of this psalm. Or zarua la tzadik uli sherel simcha simchu tzadikim ba'adonai v'chodu lezacher kodsho. Light beams are seated for the righteous, happiness for those steadfast of heart. Rejoice, O righteous one, in the unnameable. Be thankful for its sacred trace. I look to those words today, and I need those words today, because sometimes it can feel like, what are we working towards? What are we doing this for? And I'm reminded in these words that embedded in the Jewish tradition, embedded in our humanity, is working towards justice. It is working towards righteousness. And so I invite you in these moments where it can be hard to feel like, where is the justice here? Where is the righteousness here? To turn back to our wise text and our wise words. And as we sing Or Zaruach La Tzadik, Uli Shrei Lev Simcha out today, I'm going to ask us to start all in at our different homes and different Shabbos tables. And for those of us at Or Hadash, we're going to start in a quieter mode. And then we're going to get louder, because I want us to actually feel what it feels like to grow in our power and to grow in the conviction that we know that a world where all humans are seen truly B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of the divine, is possible. So I invite you to take in that kavanah, that intention today as we sing this out. Page 31 at the asterisk. Or Zarua La Tzadik Uli Shrei Lev Simcha. Or Zarua La Tzadik Uli Shrei Lev Simcha. Or Zarua La Tzadik Uli Shrei Lev Simcha. Uli Shrei Lev Simcha. Or Zarua La Tzadik Uli Shrei Lev Simcha. Uli Shrei Lev Simcha. A little bit louder, a little bit more powerful. Or Zarua La Tzadik Uli Shrei Lev Simcha. Or Zarua La Tzadik Uli Shrei Lev Simcha. Or Zarua La Tzadik Uli Shrei Lev Simcha. Uli Shrei Lev Simcha. Or Zarua La Tzadik Uli Shrei Lev Simcha. Uli Shrei Lev Simcha. One more time. Or Zarua La Tzadik Uli Shrei Lev Simcha. Or Zarua La Tzadik Uli Shrei Lev Simcha. Or Zarua La Tzadik Uli Shrei Lev Simcha. Uli Shrei Lev Simcha. Or Zarua La Tzadik Uli Shrei Lev Simcha. Uli Shrei Lev Simcha. Continue with Kabbalat Shabbat, with Lecha Dodi, which begins on page 41 We'll do the first 4 stanzas together, and then we will go to the final stanza, the 9th stanza on page 47. So 41 to 43, and then we'll jump ahead to 47. Lecha dodi likrat kala yadada 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala yadada 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor bezachor beitur echad Hishmianu el hameuchad Adonai echad u'shmo echad L'shemu tiferet v'lehihila Lecha dodi likrat kala yadada 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela Lecha dodi likrat kala yadada 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela likrat Shabbat lehu benelcha ki hi mekorcha bracha merosh mikedem nesucha sof maseh b'machashva tehila lecha dodi likrat kala yadada 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala yadada 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela Mikdash melech ir melucha Kumi hitzei mitoch hafecha Rav לשבת בעמק הבכה והוא יחמול עלי חמלה לך דודי לקראת כלה ידדה 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 פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה ידדה 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 פני שבת נקבלה התנערי מפרקומי ליפשי בגדי תפארתכמי על יד בן ישי תלחמי קרבה אל נפשי גלה לך דודי לקראת כלה ידדה 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 פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה ידדה 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 פני שבת נקבלה בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת כלה ידדה 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 פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה ידדה 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 פני שבת נקבלה. I, at this time, ask that folks share in the chat on YouTube how many adults are YouTubing in with us tonight as we navigate hybrid services and worship together. We still know what it means to come together as a community, and we still have the same expectations around having a minyan and the certain prayers that we do in our tradition with a certain number of people, and those in which we don't do without that number of people. And that is actually just serves as another reminder for us about the power of showing up for each other too. So I invite you now to put in the chat how many adults are in your home so we can get a sense of who is with us tonight. And also if you want to say hi and introduce yourself, that would be great too. And we will continue with Psalm 92, which can be found on page 49. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lechodod laHadonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lechodod laHadonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon. Page 51 at the asterisk. The righteous flourish like the palm trees, like cedars of Lebanon they grow. Sadikata mahayifra ke'eretz balvanon yizkei shetulim bebeit Adonai b'chatzrot Eloheinu yafrichun od yod yenuvun beseva deshenim verananim yehiyu lechagid ki yashar Adonai Suri velo avlatabo. We'll turn to Achavat Olam, page 61. And my framing and my thinking around this prayer is really the same every week, and we could say every morning too, and every evening. We, in the morning and in the evening, every single day, we say a prayer where we're reminded of the unconditional love we get just for being alive. And that is a beautiful thing to remind ourselves of, and at times a radical thing for us to remind ourselves of as we take in what it means to be loved, just to be loved for being alive and being here and being human. Page 63. Achavat olam beit Yisrael amcha Torah mitzvot hukim mishpatim otanu limahadeta al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shofeinu ufkumeinu nasiha behu kecha v'nisma b'divrei Toratecha u'mitzvotecha v'yolam ba'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, Ochev Amo Yisrael. Blessed are you, Holy One, who loves your people, Israel. Amen. We turn to this prayer of unity, of oneness with the Shema, page 65. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha b'chayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom alevavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha u'vleftecha b'derech u'shokbecha u'vkumecha Ukshartam leot al yadecha, v'chayu letotafot b'nei necha, uftaftam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha. In a moment, we will turn to our song of freedom and liberation with the Micha Mocha. And before that, I want to raise our attention to something else going on in our world. This week is Transgender Awareness Week, and tomorrow is Trans Day of Remembrance and Trans Day of Resilience. So we hold both the sorrow and the memory of trans people who have been attacked and killed for being trans because of transphobia and hate in our society. And we also hold the resilience of the transgender community and the vision they have for what it means to truly live in freedom and dignity and with equality. And in that vein of holding that memorial and that pain alongside that strength, I want to share a poem written by Hannah Bender, who is a rabbinical student at Hebrew Union College and is writing this from their perspective as a trans person. And this is called I Was at Sinai. I was at Sinai. When I say I was at Sinai, I mean all of me. I was there in all my transness. I was there complete. I was there myself, created and recreated with permission and excitement from my divine. There at the front of the mountain with all my siblings, God saw me. When I say God saw me, I mean all of me. God saw, God sees me in my transness, my wholeness, sees my creation and recreation. God lends permission and excitement and smiles from Sinai until now. God sees all of us. Kenya Hiratzon, may that be so. And I thank Hannah for their beautiful, beautiful words. We turn to the Micha Mocha on page 79. This is a melody I've done before here at Or Hadash. It's from Shir Yaakov, and I think really gets at what I was talking about of holding the pain alongside the resilience and the vision for what the world can be. Micha Mocha Ba'elim Adonai Micha Mocha Nedar B'Kodesh Nora Tehilot Oh Sefer Halel Nora Tehilot O Sefer Halel Yai Rai 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 Baruch Atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. Blessed are you, Sovereign One, Israel's redeeming power. If you've joined us recently on YouTube, I invite you to say hi, who's there with you. If you want to say the number of people that you're calling in with, that would be wonderful. And we will continue with Hashkivenu 81, really in the same vein of what I've been talking about. Hashkivenu asks God, ask the divine, however you think of the mystery of the world, to spread over God's canopy of peace over all of us. Page 81. Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'chamideinu malkeinu l'chaim. Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'chamideinu malkeinu l'chaim. Yai-da-dai-dai-dai-dai-dai. Yai da 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 da, yai da 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 da, yai da da da, yai da 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 da, yai da 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 da, yai da 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 da, yai da. Blessed are you, compassionate one, who spreads your canopy of peace over all your people Israel and over Jerusalem. The Shamru can be found on page 85. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. B'nei Israel, oti le'olam, oti le'olam, oti le'olam. V'shamru b'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai, et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. V'yom hashvi Shabbat v'yinafash, Shabbat v'yinafash, Shabbat v'yinafash v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. We have reached the time of the Amidah, our time for personal, private prayer. The Amidah begins on page 91 in our Sidurim, our prayer books, and goes through page, 107. So we're going to take a few minutes now for people to pray with either the words in the Sidur, or if the words on your own heart are calling you today, that is always fantastic. And you can also, if this is a time where you want to sit in silent meditation, that is also a wonderful option. We'll come back together in a few minutes. Ose shalom bimromav huyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Ose shalom bimromav huyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Wanted to take this moment to share some words of Torah with you tonight. We are in the Parsha of Vayishlach, and I want to start with a bit of a content warning that this Parsha contains stories of violence and sexual assault, and I will be discussing that a bit in my Devar Torah tonight. So I trust that we all here know the best ways to take care of ourselves, and just wanted to name that up front so you can decide how to approach this material tonight. So in this week's Parsha, Vayishlach, we begin with Jacob's wrestling with an angel, wrestling with God. And soon the story takes us into painful territory when we read about what has most often been discussed as the rape of Dinah, followed by the vengeance taken by her brothers, but without her input. More recent commentary on this Parsha has explored whether or not it was in fact rape, or if she actually did decide to go out and have consensual sex, but actually was ultimately stigmatized for that decision. Ultimately, we do not actually know because we never hear from Dinah. In her exploration of this week's Parsha, Rabbi Aviva Richman of Hadar in New York stated, "The most devastating part of the story of Dinah and this week's Parsha is that the Torah does not share Dinah's perspective. We have no idea if this was the rape of Dinah or an encounter she desired. Interpretations over the past many centuries have gone in strikingly divergent directions, which just amplifies the extent to which her consent and her voice are entirely irrelevant in the plain text. This gap is not surprising, but as inheritors of Torah, we must ask ourselves how we inherit this part of our Torah responsibly." I want to repeat one line of what Rabbi Richman said. Her consent and her voice, referring to Dinah, are entirely irrelevant in the plain text. Rabbi Richman goes on to state, this first step of disclosure that leads out of self-blame can be intertwined with advocacy, hence the central message and title of Dr. Ben Nishimol's work, Victims Are Doing It for Themselves. Instead of a story where brothers or other outsiders swoop in based on their own sense of violation to avenge a silent sister, our focus shifts to how a person facing this kind of stigma can find their own voice and carve out pathways of resilience and dignity that can have ripple effects on others. End quote. Sometimes after moments of deep pain and trauma, we do not know what to say. We might not even know exactly what happened. That is a normal trauma response. Sometimes we do not need to share it immediately. That is also a normal trauma response. We often need to take space before we share our stories with a trusted person because we want to make sure whoever we choose to disclose our story to will truly listen to us. What I want to say to you all on this Shabbat is you do not need to have the perfect thing to say that something hurt you, and you don't need to say it right away. That is your choice. There is a feminist theological practice coined by activist Nellie Morton called hearing to speech. It is the idea that through the process of someone being truly heard by another person, they claim their own truth. This type of both being heard and listening on the other person's part can transform into deep healing and hope. Sometimes as humans, when we are listening to a friend or a partner or a colleague about a problem they are facing, We are often tempted to go into fix-it mode, into solution mode. But sometimes the fix or healing necessary is simply listening. It's simply letting that person know there is space for their story. There is pain in our Torah and there is pain in our lives. The trick to being a human at times seems to me to be working on the balancing act of accepting pain and advocating for change so less people are in pain in the future, so you are in less pain. That takes its form in advocacy work and it takes its form in healing work. In both of those manifestations, though, our stories are key. Our stories shape how we understand the world and how we understand ourselves. 3 years ago, Rabbi Annie Lewis, who has been one of my teachers, wrote the incredible poem called Uprising, inspired by this week's Parsha and inspired by the Me Too movement. And I want to share that with you tonight. Uprising by Rabbi Annie Lewis. Me too, Dina. Me too. If only you could see us now, all the great men falling like the idols of your great-great-grandfather, egos slain like the men of Shechem. If only you could see us now, your sisters taught to make nice, take care, shouting, me too. No more. All your sisters trained to harbor shame for going out, claiming space, craving more, because we asked for it, so we deserved it. If only you could see us now, Dina, our truth rising up like song. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be so that our truth rises up like a song and that we are all there to hear it. Shabbat Shalom. And if there are a share, I invite you to put that in the chat. And we'll take one moment to just see if there are any responses that I want to call those out if there are, and then we will continue with our service. We'll continue with the Misha Berach. If you are holding in your hearts today people who are in special need for healing, I invite you to put their names in the chat, and for those who are in person, for us to say them out loud. While those names come in the chat, I am going to read the Misha Berach list from the Or Hadash community this week. We are sending a refuah shlema, a healing, to Andrea Abrams Herbert, James Alberts, Roberta Archibald, David Ash, Arden Bell, Barry Bell, Carol Mueller Bell, Rabbi Deborah Bowen, Robin Cupo, Francesca Dever, Faye Fishman, Marcy Fish, Joan Flaherty, Eric Gershman, Jonathan Giannini, George Glansberg, Gail Glansberg, Cordula Hamish, Hava Hurley, Michelle Kalek, Sharon Cass, Moss Kaufman, Beverly and Howard Kaufman, Fran Kaufman, Richard Crayson, Elsie Lieberstein, Robert Mueller, Anthony Nero, Lisa Nicholson, Jennifer Pablo, Riley Pablo, Thomas Pablo, Stan Polek, Pearl Ritterman, Abby Rosenberg, Mike Rosenberg, Shelley Sanders, Willie Schneer, Bertha Schwartz, Marlene Sortino, Lloyd Sutter, Howard Temple, Lynn Van Engel, Brandy Wasilowski, Stan Weckstein, Millie Weissman, Grace Zangwill, Eileen Zeff, Arnold Burson, If there are names that you want, you can put them in the chat.
Eric Griffin Shelley, Dave Chapman, Hugh Stevenson, and Tamara McHugh.
Maya Praff, Tamar Kamenokowski. Misha Behera Habotenu Mekor Habraha Veimohotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Behera Vihimotenu Mekor Habraha Leavahotenu. May those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. May they all have a refuat kanafesh, a refuat guf, a healing of the soul and a healing of the body. We will continue with Kiddush on page 119. If you want to run and grab your grape juice or your wine, I invite you to do so. And we will come together and say Kiddush on page 119. Savri Chavrai, Baruch Atah Adonai Elokeinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch Atah Adonai Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavahanu, b'shabbat kodsho b'yachava uvratzon, hinhilanu zikaron l'maseh bereshit, ki hu yom tehillah l'mikra kodesh, techel etziat Mitzrayim, ki aleinu kirata, yotanu kidashta, li'avodatecha v'shabbat kodshecha, B'yachava uvratzon hinchaldanu, Baruch Atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Nothing like Kedem grape juice. Continue with Aleinu, which can be found on page 121. I invite you to rise in body or spirit. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, la'tek gedula liyotzeh breshit, shenatan lanu Torah emet, b'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu, ve'anachnu karim u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. Kakatu b'toratecha Adonai yimlach le'olam va'ed, v'nemar v'chaya Adonai le'melech al kol ha'aretz, bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. Every person and people that feel they have something to live for and that are bent on living that life in righteousness are true witnesses of God. We turn now to the point of our service where we remember those who are no longer with us. And although we don't have 10 today to say this specific prayer of Mourner's Kaddish, I want us to all feel this space of memory. and really to hold on to those of us, those people in our lives that we love, who we're holding on to today. And I will read those in our community who are observing yard sites or in a period of mourning today, and really hold on to those names and those members of our community who are in mourning. And if you're remembering someone today, I invite you to put that in the chat as well. Observing yard sites in our community. The yard site for Estelle Abrams, aunt of Amy Goldberg Alberts. Leah Gelbert Lewis, mother-in-law of Sandy Lewis. Sam Wapnowitz, father-in-law of Manny Stuerman. Robert Van de Veer, father of John Elliott Van de Veer. Phyllis Applebaum, mother of Ruth Mermelstein. Nechoma Shebet, mother of Jeff Shebet. And in a period of Shloshim, in the first 30 days of mourning, we're remembering Peter D. Hoagland, father of Jennifer Hoagland, father-in-law of Steve Weissman and grandfather of Alexis and Adam Weissman. Alfred Hiller, father of Amy Mendelson, father-in-law of Phil Mendelson, and grandfather of Julian Mendelson. We're also, as I mentioned earlier, marking Trans Day of Remembrance and holding on to those people who have been killed due to hate in our world. We will read the poem Life After Death by Laura Gilpin, which can be found on page 796 as we remember them. Life after death. These things I know, how the living go on living and how the dead go on living with them, so that in a forest, even a dead tree casts a shadow, and the leaves fall one by one, and the branches break in the wind, and the bark peels off slowly, and the trunk cracks, and the rain seeps in through the cracks, and the trunk falls to the ground, and the moss covers it, and in the spring the rabbits find it and build their nest inside the dead tree, so that nothing is wasted in nature or in love. May all those who we are remembering, may their memories be for a blessing, and may we continue to have the blessing of remembering them. We turn now to community announcements, and I'll also, if there's any simchas, any celebrations, you can put those in the chat too. So we have lots of great programming coming up. On Sunday, there's an adult ed program, Jewish Spirituality, Why So Many Left Judaism to Search for Spirituality Elsewhere, and Where and How We Can Find It Today. A discussion with Rabbi Sheila Peltz-Weinberg. That's going to be at 11 a.m. on Zoom. You can register the link is in HaKesher. And Sheila Peltz-Weinberg, I always say this, but in our Siddur, there's often wonderful quotes below the line that say SPW at the end. This is SPW. She's coming to Or Hadash, so it's going to be really great. On this Monday, there is evening Torah study at 7:30. Marty Jacobs or Jeff Shebet are the main contacts for that. The anti-racism study group is also meeting on Monday night at 7:30. Just a note, Thanksgiving weekend, so next Sunday, there's no Smile School. And the Sunday, November 28th, is going to be the first night of the Hanukkah candle lighting events that are going to be happening every night at 6:30 throughout Hanukkah. So every night of Hanukkah, there's going to be a community candle lighting on Zoom that's going to include a kind of a presentation or a song or a reading. The first night is going to be Phil Rosenberg, our president, is going to be reading the great story of Herschel and the Hanukkah goblins. So you can Zoom in to light the candles and show off your Hanukkahs to the community throughout Hanukkah. And Mahjong next November 30th. And we have our next 12-step Habara meeting on Wednesday, December 1st at 7:30 on Zoom. And Friday, December 3rd, we're going to have a big 3-part Harmony Shabbat / Hanukkah party. And we're going to have a show and tell of your different Hanukkahs right here on the Bima. So bring them in and we'll be able to share a little bit about our own family menorahs and Hanukkahs. And it will be lots of fun. We're going to have pizza, and there will be a concert from the Klezmaniacs and family service at 7. And all the information is in Hakesher per usual. And the last announcement I'll make is on Friday, December 10th, we have Human Rights Shabbat, and we're going to be focusing on the issue of mass incarceration. And that is going to be at 7 p.m. Usually we do Kabbalat Shabbat at 7:30, so just note the difference because we're going to have a speaker. And so services will be probably from like 7 to 8:30 or so. Any simchas that people want to announce? Good website? No. Great. We are going to close with Adon Olam, which can be found on page 133. Adon Olam asher mala b'terem kol yitzir nivra li'ed nasa behefso kol azai melech shemo nikra ve'acharei kichlot hakol levado kimloch nehora v'hu haya v'hu hoveh Vehu yeh betivara, vehu echad ve'ein sheni, v'hamshir lo lechapira, ve'li reshit, ve'li tachlit, ve'lo ha'oz v'hamshira, vehu eli, v'hai goali, ve'tzur chevli v'yet sahara, Vehu nisi umanos li menat kosi beyom ekra beyado apkid ruchi be'eti shan be'ahira be'im ruchi geviati Adonai li velo ira. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shalom, everybody.
Good to see all of you and be with all of you. And I hope everybody has a really beautiful and restful Shabbat. Oh, and there's one announcement I forgot to make. Shabbat services tomorrow morning. Torah study and services are both going to be on Zoom. Zoom link is in your email, and would be great for folks to be there on Zoom. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Great to see you.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Sherry. Shabbat shalom, Sharon.
Shabbat shalom.
Okay.